Welcome to today's class. The theme is 2 for 1 or choice. So every yoga pose that we offer for today is going to have a variation of some kind, so a completely alternate pose that you can take. So in the spirit of that, the starting pose for today's class is your choice between any pose you'd like. I can recommend easy seat, where your ankles are crossed, or half lotus or lotus. You can sit on your ankles. You can lower down into Shavasana. Or you can take any variant of child's pose and make it as active or as inactive as you would like. So take the pose that you would like to take to start today's class and begin to close your eyes and deepen the breath. Activating the back of the throat, Ujjayi breathing. So this theme of choice is common in a yoga practice when there is a teacher guiding a class, when it's not just you on your mat doing the poses that are speaking to you. So a teacher may choose to transition between different asanas based on a certain theme, or maybe it's culminating in a difficult pose. But whatever the teacher is doing, there's always the choice to take a different pose and make the practice easier for you, maybe based on where you are that day or in your practice, or if you have an injury. So take that concept of choice and carry it with you through today's class, knowing that whatever poses we're in, you can change it up. You can hold a pose instead of transitioning into 2 different poses. You can try all of the variations we suggest. It's really up to you. So with that said, set an intention for today's class. Maybe your intention is simple. Maybe your intention is related to choice or a decision you have to make. Or maybe your intention is completely unrelated. Continue breathing deeply. And from wherever you are, we're going to work on our spines. So we're either going to do cat-cows from tabletop position, or if you're seated, you can do a variation where your knees come out to the sides, your chest comes forward, and your gaze is up, and you exhale back, arms straightening, chin to chest. So it's essentially the same movement, but one is on your seat and the other is hands and knees. Transitioning between the poses to your own breath. Continuing to warm up the spine. From wherever you are, we're all going to come to a table position. And we're either going to work on our core by taking bird dog pose. So from tabletop, our wrists are directly underneath our shoulders and our knees are directly underneath our hips. And on an inhale, we're going to raise our right arm forward and take our left leg back, which activates the core. So you're pretending that someone's pulling your arms away from your body, not up, which activates your glutes, but pulling your hands and feet away from your body. And on an exhale, that comes down. And on the next inhale, you're going to alternate and raise your left arm now and your right leg back. So go ahead and take this movement as one option. And as an alternate, you can take balancing cat. So when your arm and opposite leg is up, you can reach back with your hand and grab the top of the foot, working the quad and stretching out the shoulder. So it's a bit more of a strength move. Choosing what you would like to do here based on your bodies. Maybe you're not balancing the cat here and working on the strength. Maybe you're doing bird dog, but instead of moving with your own breath, you are holding the pose and breathing, keeping your core engaged for a few breaths and then switching sides. From here, everyone's going to come to table position and then kick your legs back to a plank. So your wrists are directly underneath your shoulders, your heels are fighting back behind you, and if it's a bit too much, you can drop down onto your knees. As a variation, you can come into side plank on one side, holding it for a few breaths. Maybe you need to kick your top leg back behind you to have a third point of contact with the ground, or come onto your knee. So you can hold plank and challenge yourself and see how many breaths, deep breaths, you can hold it for. Or maybe you're taking steps to the right and left. So keep playing with the plank pose. Taking a break if you need it. From wherever you are, come to a classic plank pose and lower down chaturanga, elbows at your sides, resting on your bellies. And we're going to come into a back bend of your choosing. So you can come onto your forearms into Sphinx pose, shoulders away from the ears, gazes forward. You can come into cobra or mini cobra or up dog. Just holding a back bend for a few breaths. And then we're going to take an opposite back bend. So come into a downward dog or a child's pose. Something to get the back moving the opposite way. If you're in child's pose, maybe it's active. You're pushing against your palms, digging your hips closer to your heels. Maybe you're moving your arms left, stretching out the right side body, or to the right, stretching out the left side body. Or if you're in down dog, maybe you're pedaling out your dog, stretching out the calves. If you're in down dog, your hips are high in the center of your body. If you need to, you can bend your knees to get more height out of them. The weight in your hands is mostly in your thumbs and first finger. If your legs are straight behind you, their heels are digging towards the ground. We're now going to inhale our right leg up behind us and kick it through to meet our hands. And come up into a lunge option. So if you just take the chest off of your legs but keep your belly on your thigh and tent your fingers, low lunge. You can raise your arms up to crescent lunge. If you need to, dropping your knee down to your mat or a block, untucking your toes behind you. So choose your lunge option, doing what feels best for your body. Or maybe not what feels best in the moment, but what might be best for you, based on where you are in your practice and what your body needs. Maybe you're feeling a really nice stretch in one of these poses, and you want to continue on with that stretch. Bring your arms down to the mat in front of you. If your back foot is flat, retuck your toes and kick your front foot back to downward facing dog. We're going to take a few breaths here, catching our breath. And this is a nice active pose. And we use down dog as a rest pose despite how active it really can be. So if this pose is too much for you, you can bring your knees down to the mat and sink your hip back towards your heels in child's pose. If you're in child's pose, come back to downward facing dog, and then inhale, left leg up, toes pointing down at the mat, and on an exhale, kick it through to meet your hands, and come up to your low lunge option on the other leg. There's not one better pose here. There's not one perfect asana. We're just merely suggesting a low lunge or a crescent lunge. You can lower your hands down to the mat and kick your front leg back to downward facing dog. Breathing here. On an inhale, right leg goes up, and on an exhale, it meets your hands. Spin your back heel so it's parallel with the back edge of your mat, and windmill your arms up to a warrior two. We're going to either do a hamstring stretch, so you can straighten your front knee and come into triangle pose, dropping the right arm towards your ankle and your left arm up to the sky. Or you can have a bend in your front knee, and you can clasp your hands behind your back and raise your fist up towards the sky with a shoulder stretch, humble warrior. So which pose is speaking to you right now? From wherever you are, come back into warrior two pose. And then windmill your hands down to the mat, framing that front foot before you kick it back to downward dog. On an inhale, left leg goes up. Exhale, kick it through. Windmill the arms up to a warrior two on the other side. And take the pose that's speaking to you. Triangle, humble warrior. Maybe it's another pose here. That's fine. Triangle and humble warrior are merely suggestions, but this is your practice. Yoga classes offer guidance and choice, but it's never a must. From wherever you are, come back into a warrior two. Windmill arms to mat and kick the front leg back to downward dog. Breathing here. Coming into a child's pose if you need a bit more of a break, if you need to catch your breath just a little bit more before we continue on with the practice. Or maybe you need an alternate pose. That's fine too. On an inhale, right leg goes up. Exhale, kick it through. Spin up to a warrior two. And we're going to take some side angle variations. So bring your torso forward, hooking your front elbow to the front knee. Left arm up to the sky, gazes past your fingertips. Classic side angle pose. You can go a little further by taking that left hand overhead, stretching out the left side body, extended side angle pose. For something deeper, you can bring that right arm down to a block or the mat. Deeper still, you can start to come into a bind. So if a bind is in your practice, your left arm goes behind your back, meeting at the right part of your hip. Your right arm reaches underneath your leg, clasping fingers, and you're twisting your chest open to the left, so gaze is over your left shoulder and up at the sky. Maybe you want to take it even further and go into bird of paradise if that's in your practice. Or maybe you're back at classic side angle pose, and that's what you're calling for. If you were in the bind or in the bird of paradise, come back to classic side angle, and then warrior two. Then windmill your arms down to the mat and kick it back to dog. If you're in child's pose, come back to downward facing dog. If you're in any pose, you can come back to dog, if you choose. And on an inhaled Left leg comes up, exhaling it through to the hands, windmilling up, warrior two. Side angle on the other side, so torso comes forward, left elbow leans on that front knee ever so gently, not too much weight there. And then come into the expression of side angle pose that speaks to you. Maybe you want classic. Maybe you want to open up your side body and stay in extended side angle. Maybe you like the stretch that bringing your left hand down to the mat brings. Or maybe you want to come into a bind and gaze over your right shoulder. If you're in a bind, come back into side angle pose, and then back to warrior two. And then windmill your arms down to the mat, framing the foot and kicking it back to dog, child's pose, shavasana. You choose. What is calling your name today? On an inhale, your right leg goes up, and on an exhale, you can kick it through to your hands. And you can come up to any warrior of your choosing. So maybe you're spinning your back leg to a 45-degree angle and coming into warrior one. Maybe you're in warrior two. Maybe you're in humble warrior. Maybe you want to challenge yourself today coming into warrior three. Maybe you want to reverse your warrior if you're in two. Maybe you want to twist in your warrior to the right and the left. Maybe you want to take a lot of graceful movements in your warrior. From wherever you are, windmill your hands down to the mat, kicking back to downward dog, catching your breath here. On an inhale, left leg goes up, exhaling through to your hands and popping up into a warrior of your choosing. Get excited about the warrior you're choosing. Maybe you're excited to do a warrior that you feel comfortable in. Or maybe you are excited about a warrior that is helping you stretch and get your body into a new position. Maybe you're excited for a challenging warrior. Maybe you're excited for lots of flow and movement and play. From wherever you are, windmill your arms down to the mat, coming to downward dog. If you're in child's pose or another pose and you'd like to continue on with us, you can come to downward facing dog. On an inhale, the right leg goes up. On an exhale, kick it through to your hands. Windmill your arms up to a warrior two. And we're going to do revolved poses here. So you can come to triangle and then revolve it by bringing the left hand down to the opposite side of the leg and the right arm up to the sky. Or maybe you want to try revolved half moon, if that is in your practice. From wherever you are, you can bring your hands down to the mat, kick your leg back to downward facing dog. If you're in child's pose or another pose, you can come to downward facing dog. As we prepare to take a revolved pose on the other leg. So on an inhale, left leg rises behind us. Exhale it through to the hands. Windmilling up to 2. Maybe straightening the knee to come into triangle. And then taking that right arm down to the leg, and our left arm comes up, twisting to our left, revolved triangle. That's the pose I chose to stay in for today's class because it was speaking to me. I'm working hard on my revolved triangle pose. From where you are, maybe you want to switch poses. Maybe you want to stay in one pose. What is your body telling you? If you'd like, you can come down back to a downward facing dog or child's pose. If you're in child's pose, come to downward facing dog, and then walk or jump your feet to your hands and inhale up to a flat back position. So there's a 90-degree bend at the waist, shoulders are away from the ears, and your hands are somewhere on your knees or your legs. You're then going to exhale to a forward fold. And then with an inhale and a flat back, bring your arms all the way up overhead. And then with an exhale, hands come to prayer at heart center. We will work on balance pose choices here. So first, we're going to spill weight into our right leg, and our left leg can come to the calf or the inner thigh, but not the knee joint. And you can raise your arms up into tree pose, or you could take your left leg back behind you, right arm comes forward, leaning forward into dancer pose. Or you can grab with the first 2 fingers the left toe, and with a straight spine extend your foot out to the left. Working on hamstring strength and flexibility there. So take the balancing pose of your choice, balancing on the right leg. For an extra challenge, you can look up or close your eyes or move around a little bit in the balancing pose. From wherever you are, bring your hands to prayer at heart center. Take your leg out, hovering over the ground, and then make contact, finally, shaking it out. And we're going to start to come onto the other side. So weight spills into the left leg, and the right leg moves to whichever position you would like in your balancing pose. Tree, dancer, extended toe. Maybe you're finding stillness in your balance. Maybe you're playing with movement. Bring your hands to prayer, hover your foot over the ground, and then make contact and shake it out. For the next pose, we're going to do an inversion of your choosing. So the goal is to get your legs up into the air and stay there for at least 90 seconds or so. So if you're new to inversions, you can always come to a pole, a wall, a door, bring your seat close to it, and then connect your heels, extending your legs straight up. And then just lay back and let the blood flow down the opposite direction in your legs. Other options could be shoulder stand, headstand, tripod headstand, handstand for those advanced yogis. Whichever option you choose, come into the inversion. Maybe if you're prone to moving around a lot, you're coming back to your intention of finding more stillness in your practice. Or maybe you're thinking back to your intention and you want to find more play and movement or challenge. So think back to that intention and see if it relates to where we are in today's class right now. Slowly and safely lower down to the mat. Coming out of the inversion and resting on your backs for now. Transition onto your stomachs. We're going to have an option here to come into Superman pose with arms back behind us or forward, or bow pose, where we reach back behind us and grab the top of our feet and magnetize our knees together. Either way, the goal is to use every muscle in your body to come up and get limbs off the mat. Breathing deeply, torso rocking as you breathe. Really squeezing every muscle. And you can lower down onto your stomachs, resting on one cheek, or if it's more comfortable, your forehead can rest on a forearm or your chin. I think some people, they can rest on their chin. I cannot. Mine is too large. If you're on one cheek, you can switch sides, being kind to our necks. And then bring your arms underneath your shoulders, tuck your toes, and push up. Holding plank for a second, and then lowering onto your knees. And then kicking your heels off to one side and sitting back on our seats. From here, we're going to lower down onto our backs. We're going to set up for either a bridge pose or wheel. So when ready, inhale up into either pose. If you're new to yoga, I'll set you up for bridge. So your heels are close enough to your seat that you can brush them with your fingertips, and then your feet are hips-width distance apart. You then inhale your hips up and use your glutes and your quad strength as well. So that's the front of the thighs to keep your hips up. You walk your shoulders underneath your back behind you, and you interlace your fingers, making a fist, and draw that fist down towards the ground and towards your heels. Slowly lower back down to the mat, and bring your knees into your chest, giving them a squeeze with your arms and gently rocking left and right. Massaging the back. Now rock up and down the length of your spine, from head to seat. You're then going to rock a little harder so that you come to a seated position. And we're going to work on a hamstring stretch. So left leg comes out, left toes are flexed. The bottom of the right foot is touching the inner thigh of the left leg, so the knee is coming out to the right. And with a flat back and a straight spine, inhale your arms up and exhale over the toes, connecting your hands to your knee, the shin, your feet. And as an alternate for this pose, you can take your right arm up and then try to bring it overhead back towards your toes so that you're opening the right side of the body as you're stretching out your hamstring. So just stay in a classic hamstring stretch if that's enough for you. Or get a twofer here, hamstring stretch and right side body stretch. Breathing here, breathing very deeply. Letting that oxygen get to the parts of your body that are stretching and opening up here. Now come back up, and we're going to switch legs. So right leg extends out, toes are flexed. The bottom of the left foot comes into the inner thigh of the right leg. Left knee now splays out to the left side. We inhale, arms up, and exhale over the toes. A classic hamstring stretch here. Or now we are lifting our left hand up and overhead, twisting and opening our body to the left side, stretching out our left side body. We're going to come back up and work on a supine twist now. So left leg extends out in front of us, left toes are flexed, and right foot comes over the left leg, knee is up. Right arm goes back behind us. So this is kind of setting up for classic supine twist, or we can take that left leg and bring the heel towards our right seat, and if both bones, seat bones, are on the ground still, we can come into half lord of the fishes. So left hand comes up on an inhale and we twist to the right, connecting left elbow to right knee. And as we inhale, our spine gets straighter and taller, and as we exhale, we twist more to the right and back behind us. Come back to center. Untangle that knot you created in your legs. And we're going to work on the other side. So right leg extends out in front of us, right toes are flexed, left leg comes over right. And the left hand is going to go back behind us if we're going to do a classic supine twist here. And you can just go ahead and go into that pose. Or if you want to take half lord of the fishes, you're going to take that left heel and bring it towards your right seat. And then inhale your right arm up and twist to the left, connecting right elbow to left knee. So maybe you are not flexible enough in the hips yet to get both sit bones to make contact with the ground while you attempt half lord of the fishes pose. That's fine. Stick with the classic supine twist. Come back to center. And we're going to take either a boat pose on our seats, or we're going to grab our big toes with our first two fingers and extend our legs out to the side, stretching our hamstrings. So you decide here, this is the last pose before our final resting pose, so maybe you want a little more activity in the core, or maybe you've got really tight hamstrings, or maybe you just really like the extended toe pose. Even in boat pose, you have options to make it more difficult. So instead of having your calves parallel with the ground, you can extend your legs straight and point your toes for a little bit more of an engagement of the core. And it definitely gets you shaky. Come down out of the pose and get ready for the final resting pose. And you can choose whether you want to be in classic corpse pose, which is Shavasana, or one of the child pose variations. Or maybe you want to do Supta Baddha Konasana, where you have the bottoms of your feet together, your knees are splaying out to the side. You're pushing your groin towards the ground. So you're not trying to push your knees to the ground, you're trying to push your groin down, which actually helps bring your knees down eventually. So it's a nice hip opener here. Maybe if you are having some trouble with Half Lord of the Fishes, this pose can help open up your hips. It's a good variation for the final resting pose. So in this final pose, try to keep your palms facing up. In child's pose, your palms can be down, that's fine. And you're not concentrating on your breath anymore here, you're just concentrating on relaxing every muscle in your body. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. Nelson Mandela. Slowly introduce movement into your physical bodies. Stretching arms overhead from fingertips to toes. Bring your knees to your chest, gently squeezing and rocking left and right. Kneeling onto your right side, fetal position. With your left hand, push against the ground and come to a comfortable seated position, or any final position where you can give gratitude. Maybe you're sitting on your heels. Thank yourself for coming to the mat today and being kind to your mind and your body. The light in me shines in the light in you. Namaste.